What's going on? What's going on? This is Dontaye Carter with Beyond the Brand on Hits 92.3. Ooh! Yeah, they had a very interesting conversation about church, Jesus, religion, that boy City. I tell you the truth. But this boy Dontaye is on the air, and we are ready to roll. I have my man Gary Davis of Next Level Boys Academy here, and I'm super excited about this interview. I originally met this brother through attorney Sarah Flack. I came out, had an opportunity to hear some of the things that he's done, saw some of the videos, taking a young man out to the Fulton County Jail, really helping to give them a full experience in terms of mentorship, showing them what opportunities are out there if they don't seize them and the consequences that come along with that. And so I've been really inspired by your work, and I just wanted to get an opportunity to figure out, why did you start it? What led you there?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, man. I know it was, but thank you. I don't know, for a number of reasons. It started in 2009, and during that time, I was working for the state of Georgia, and decided to I saw a need back then for that our young men would one day end up in this position that we're in. A world of emergency for young men of color. Mm-hmm. So I just quit my job, man, and decided to start a movement for young black boys.
Wow. What was that point that made you want to quit your job?
Well, I knew that working was, I felt like I was just existing. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it, I was at a point in my life where I didn't have any purpose. I was just going to a 9 to 5, but I wanted to find something that excited me, and that was coaching Little League sports. So I noticed every time I got to the baseball field, I was coaching my sons at the time, I was getting excited about that, man. So I just drove my passion, my purpose right into what I love to do.
Yeah. And, I mean, just tell us about some of the lives that you've seen change, some of the young men that have taken what you've given them and run with it in the ways they've done that.
Well, I initially started out in 2009 as a simple summer camp program. So that group of young men that started, the oldest group was my son's age. They're now seniors in college, and majority of them on athletic scholarships. And the success stories of those young men about to graduate from college. And then I had another group of young men that come through, and they're all, I think the ones that was in my intervention program, mm-hmm. their lives turned out to be pretty successful. But then about 5 years ago, I started a diversion program. That's working with those group of young men that are stuck in a place and just trying to intervene to where they were in their life. So I have a pretty good success rate, to say the least, but you have to interview them to get the full answer.
Well, I'd love for you to bring them.
Absolutely.
We can definitely do a follow-up, but just tell us about the things that you're doing with your program that are very unique to you and the opportunities that you're providing the young man.
Well, one of the things we're doing now is our diversion program, which is an alternative to incarceration. So what happened was, about 5 years ago, I noticed there were a lot of good young men who were making bad decisions, and the courts were just sending them to prison. So I drew up a proposal and said, hey, listen, how about we divert some of these cases? So I tried it in Fulton County, and the very first young man they tried me with at that time, he was an 11th grader, and he was facing 25 years in prison. So they tested the program with him.
Oh, wow.
And we had a very successful turnaround. So we flipped the 25 years of sentence, prison time, to 25 football offers.
Oh, wow.
So he's now playing college football and probably be in the NFL draft this year. So he was my very first student in the diversion program.
Wow. What schools had offered him?
Well, he got offers from every school, from Louisville, Alabama, a majority of the schools in SEC, ACC, mm-hmm. but he landed at the University of Louisville. So he came to me, he was playing high school football on Friday nights with an ankle monitor on.
Oh, wow.
And so that was one of many. And in our diversion program, we're typically diverting about 100,000 years of prison time a week.
Yeah.
A week.
Wow. One of the things that I really like about what you're doing is, so it's so funny, I never thought about it until my stepfather, he married my mother later. He said to me, man, I don't think you understand how good of a job your mother did for her to raise three young men by herself, and for none of y'all to be incarcerated or anything and never be in any trouble with the law. How amazing that is. But the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I said, it wasn't just all her. Like I had a lot of Gary Davises in my life. I think about my best friend Derek, his dad. I lived less than a mile away from my school, but he always insisted on taking us home. And I'm like, man, I could just walk. I'm good.
Right.
But he was like, man, just hop in the truck. I'll take you home.
Right.
And by doing that, I never realized how many opportunities for trouble there were on that walk home.
Right.
And I think about every day that he took me home. That was a day that I stayed out of trouble and didn't even, you don't connect those dots until later.
Right.
Really understanding that. And so it's just funny how it's just that small. I don't want to say small, but it's kind of that one step that somebody can do for you that can pivot you in a direction. Life just has its way of showing us that we don't matter. I grew up in a single parent household, working class household, so my mom was working all the time. And then when she wasn't working, she was going to school. And then there was this system of, okay, Dontaye, I'm the big chief, you the little chief, and you keep the little Indians in order, and those are my siblings. And so it was kind of that hierarchy structure that she had put in place, but it was those, I guess, those outside advisors, you could say, that helped to guide me, because it's still a tough lane to walk. When I sit back and think about it, I'm just like, no boy 8, 9, 10 years old should be saying I'm the man of the house.
Right.
You're not ready to be the man of the house.
Right.
You're not fit to be the man of the house. And so there are some real issues with these things, but it takes men like yourself who are able to see beyond just their families and seeing, okay, there are more people that we can touch here.
Right, and you have to give yourself credit for that as well, because one of the challenges we're facing with today is a lot of these young men have been given that responsibility of being the man of the house. And we know what comes with being with the man of the house. There's high-level responsibilities. But I think a lot of the crime that you're seeing being committed are those young men who are, in their minds, I'm given this responsibility, and they think that being a man of the house is by providing a financial need, which is driving them. They're 13, 14 years old. They can't pay a rent or a mortgage or a power bill, so they go out and rob. But you have to give yourself credit, because somewhere along the line, although your mom grew up and did apparently a great job with you and your siblings, but if you think about your age around the age 4 or 5, there was something, that is when the foundation was laid in your life.
Yeah.
So you go from, with young men, you get the cement is laid around age 4 and 5, and then by the time you get 5th grade, it's pretty much dry. So that's when you figure out, okay, this is what this is going to be like. And that is when you decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to make the best of a bad situation, man. So I applaud you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I think I think there are a lot of people who stood in the way and helped. But I think one of those early foundational pieces that my mother did. So my mom was she was in the Army. Both my parents were. And it was kind of once they got back that they got divorced, and she was trying to get herself back together. But I think she did a great job of helping us to know who we were. And I never understood why. Like, I remember being 5 years old, and she would bring me in front of a mirror and say, I want you to say I'm black and I'm proud.
Right.
And I'm just like, man, why in the world do I need to stand in front of this mirror?
Right.
This sounds so lame. But then you get introduced to life, and you're like, okay, you know what? My blackness is not a crime. My blackness doesn't define me. I'm black and I'm proud, and all these things start to matter. So
what did you do? I guess I'll interview you real quick, because I just wrote a book, man. It's entitled "Raising Him Without Him."
Oh wow!
It's going to be a production. It's going to turn to a movie and all of that. And I talked about, it's pretty much the new manual to raise black boys.
Okay.
And it's 25 chapters, man. It's very, very detailed. But I want to ask you a question. How did you adjust when the going got tough? Did you divert back to some of those conversations where you had to look in the mirror and say, I'm black and I'm proud? Like, how did you adjust to that? And so that's going to drive me right into where we're missing, that part that we're missing with our young boys, our young men of color nowadays. Like, how did you adjust when they got tough?
Man, I think a lot of it was... The adjustment came, right? I think there were just people around me who were able to feed hope into me. Like I said, even with my friend's dad, him taking me, it was all those things that made me feel valued. Because I got into this thing with with the guy here in town. It wasn't a big issue, but he was just talking about our men just need to take accountability. They can do better. They can do this. That. And I was just like, well, I mean, it's kind of hard to just take accountability if you've never seen it. You know,
Right.
we tell people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, not realizing they don't have boots. You
Right.
know, and so we have to look at this issue in its context. And so I even remember one time, you know, I was 14 years old. My mom got laid off, and she's stressed out about the rent and how things are going to get paid. And of course, me being there, you know, a lot of that emotion just falls
Right.
on me.
Right.
And so a friend of mine was just like, oh man, I started working with Teens Against Drugs and Alcohol. And, you know, we selling these candy bars for like $6.
Right. Right.
And we
right.
get $1.50 out of every candy bar that we sell. And so I remember I went out the first day and I'm like, man, you know, I knew kids that were selling drugs. And I'm like, hey, I'm working a whole day, man,
Right.
and I'm
Right.
not doing anything. But then it was so crazy, and I think this is what led me down the road of entrepreneurship myself is
Okay.
I started looking. I was like, okay. I called the guy that we were working with over. I said, you dropping me off in the wrong neighborhoods.
Wow.
Like I didn't realize, I didn't know, like, you know how banks and everybody, they do zip codes. I didn't know zip codes. I just knew where the houses changed and where the cars changed. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's how I looked at it.
Right.
And
right.
so when I started to understand that, I was like, look, man, I need you to drop me off at this area in Kissimmee. I need to drop me off over here by Lake Brantley. And next thing I know, you know, I'm selling like crazy. And they're like, man, how are you doing this? Well, I knew if I went out and worked, I needed to make $150.
Right.
So I'm just breaking it down. So if I got to sell, if I got to sell these candy bars for $6, but I'm only making $1.50.
But you adopted
Yeah.
that behavior from somewhere, because with young men, no matter what way you look at it, we pretty much live what we learn.
Yeah.
So you learned that from somewhere. So
Well, I think it was my mom.
okay.
Yeah, I think it was just her work ethic. I mean, to have 4 kids, you were a single parent, working and going to school.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? She was going to school during the day and working overnight. For me to see that, because I remember being in college, you know, I was working overnight as a producer at the local news station.
Wow.
And I'm going to school during the day. And one of my professors was like, man, your grades are slipping. You need to quit. Well, I can't quit because I need money. That was one. And then for
Okay.
2, how am I going to quit and I watch my mother do this? You know what I'm saying? Like, she
Right.
did it with 4 kids.
Wow.
I am,
Wow.
I'm what, 20 years old by myself? I need to figure this out.
Okay. So when you talk about those young, you talk about that friend's dad that gave you that ride, or that mom that showed you the way. Well, that are some of the things that we're missing nowadays.
Yeah.
I think we need a little bit more 24 hours in a day for parents to be successful with their sons or with their daughters. So what happened is, I think that as a people, we're having a difficult time adjusting to the way of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Things are getting more expensive every day, so we have to work longer, we have to get better paying jobs. So one of the things that I'm seeing as a challenge at Next Level Boys Academy is that I can't say that people don't know how to parent. I can honestly say that they just don't have time, man.
Mm-hmm.
You work 8 hours a day. You spend an hour and a half or 2 in traffic. You get home. By the time you eat the spaghetti and meatballs, you shower, you go to bed. So you're spending an average of 1 hour, 2 hours a day with your kids.
Yeah.
But the thing that's raising our kids is this thing. You ever heard of this thing called social media? It's raising our kids, man, and there's no love out there for kids on social media, dude. So we got to fight as parents. We got to fight against the principalities and the evilness that comes with social media, man, and we can't do it, man. So we just got to get some more of those best friends,
Yeah.
cousins, our dads.
Well, and you know, to my friend's dad's credit, you know, he went to a HBCU, and that was one of the reasons why I went to HBCU. I went to FAM.
Okay.
And loved it, enjoyed my time there, and I'll rep him to the end. But he always came in with a very community-oriented perspective. And I think that was great because when I start to look at our issues in their context, you know, it's been a history of catching up.
Right.
And I say catching up because if you think about it, right, Emancipation Proclamation was issued when? 1865. When was the Voting Rights Act passed? 1965.
Right.
So if you think about it, technically, I'm the first person in my family to be born with all my rights recognized under the government.
Wow.
So it's deep. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
very. I never
don't-
thought about that.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how deep it is. And so when we look at some of these social issues, like, it doesn't surprise me that they exist. But then we're fighting what? Segregation, Jim Crow laws.
Absolutely.
You know, then we're fighting for representation in the political space.
Right.
You know, so I mean, it hasn't been a very, where's that transitional period been? There was no transitional period. It was kind of, hey, pick up what you have and move forward.
Right. Wow.
You know, and
wow. So you think, well, you're interviewing me because I was going to ask you a question, man. So you think if our young people was a little bit more educated on our rights and of the struggles of their families, man, do you think that'll make somewhat of a difference in some of the behaviors?
I think it would, because I think if you can look at the system in which we came out of in its context, in
Right.
terms of what happened, when it happened, there was just so much thrown. Because I mean, even now, the vast majority of us aren't in middle class. The vast majority of us are still in poverty. Why is that? You know, there was a system created to keep us in certain places, but the thing that I think a lot of folks know is the system's not going to hold everybody back. So whoever can get out can get out. But I think as a group, like, that's what we're looking at, right? As a group,
Right.
it's just difficult, you know, and I see it. I mean, I see it within my own family, you know, and it's
Wow.
it's difficult.
Wow.
You know?
Wow. Well, I guess I'll just revert this back to you since you're interviewing me. I mean, because some of the things you're saying, man, is, believe it or not, it's answering a lot of my questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I'm at a point in my life and a point in my career that, and I've listened to your show, man, and I follow you on social media, and I really respect your intelligence. So to just listen and have a face-to-face to you, I don't want to a day go by, man, where I can't learn anything new to better me, myself personally,
Yeah.
and then the organization. But to listen to you, man, it's some pieces I need to add to this, man. I think I need to add to some of my classes, man, that you need to go do a family tree per se.
Yeah.
Or what rights do you think you have?
Yeah.
And I think we are always trying to fight an issue with that's so big when it's really something that's small.
Yeah.
And just listen to you these last 15 seconds, man. I've learned a lot. So.
Oh man, I appreciate it. And I'm always trying to learn myself. I'm always trying to figure out, okay, how do I get better? And I think, you know, I hear a lot of people, like, you know, I stepped in on the show before for just a little bit, and what they were saying is, man, everybody's always talking about Black history this, Black history this,
Right.
Black history this. And, you know, my point is, I'm not saying to look at that and go back, but I'm saying look at it for understanding, to see where we are now. And I you know, there's nothing that's going on now with any of these officer-involved situations that Dr. King didn't speak about. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, like, understanding the context in which, you know, it helps you to understand why there's the anger, why there are these other aspects to it, you know. And I mean, it was so funny. Me and a girl that works in D.C. in the White House, we kind of got into a bit of a social media exchange. But she posted a picture of Barack Obama meeting Nelson Mandela, and she said, America's first black president meeting South Africa's first black president. And I'm like, so are you saying there was no black leadership before Nelson Mandela? Like, what are we saying here? Like,
Wow.
like what, you know, let's give this thing more context. And
Right.
she said, well, there were never any presidents. And I was like, I don't care if you say presidents, if you say kings, if you say chiefs, however you want to define that role of leadership, it was
Right.
there
Right.
before,
Right.
you know, Nelson Mandela. So we have to be clear, and I think it's not just educating ourselves, but it's educating the world as well, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Like, hey, our history didn't stop and end with slavery.
Wow. Wow. So how many young people out there you think that, you know, it's just, it makes me question how many young people out there that you think, that I'm thinking that just don't know anything like that, man. Because we are, as it relates to young men of color, man, I live, sleep, and breathe this.
Yeah.
And it's so many dynamics, but I will have to go back that we have lost, one of the things we don't talk about enough is the broken family, man.
Yeah.
And so what your mom did, she was able to gain a village
Yeah.
back in the day to help her with what she couldn't do. But now, man, it's, you know, with our people, it ain't my problem.
Yeah.
You know, you need to fix it. So we have more issues than we do solutions.
Yeah.
And I think there's a great number of people out there that's doing all they know to do, but we got some major issues, and I'm so afraid that at some point that this crime and the issues that we're having in our communities with young men of color, that they're going to send out a different type of challenge out there per se, that's going to really, really, really affect our community in a bad way, man. So we need to really get on board, get more effective mentoring programs, and because our people, Brother Carter, our people have one, I say this every Saturday in class, we have one responsibility, and that is sticking together.
Yeah.
Why can't we not stick together, man?
But I think, like I said, we have to look at the context of it. You know, when we were brought here, we couldn't be together. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It wasn't like me and you came from the same tribe and they brought us to America. No, I came from one tribe, you came from the other. So our community was built on division. And I think when we understand that we're built on division and that it takes being intentional about unity, like unity takes intentionality. And that's something that we really got to focus on, that we haven't focused on, is that, man, there's just so many forces working against us.
But why haven't we? Is it really that difficult? I mean, because you got to think, man, and the part about it is mentoring is not for everyone. But I think everyone is doing something in their lives that can make a difference and impact their community. For example, it may not be in your schedule or in the confinements of your lifestyle to go out and mentor. So what do? You bring somebody on your show that's mentoring so you get the message out, man. So I just think that we all have something going on in our lives, man, that could really affect this community. So we got to get off this mindset where I ain't got time, or I can't do this, I can't do that. Create something, man, and because I'm really afraid as to the direction that this world is going to with young men.
Well, I think when you talk about creating, we got to get back into a method and not just it has to be creations on all fronts. Like, we got to start creating jobs, because typically who's going to hire young black boys?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to be very clear about that, because everybody else that hires us is always going to come with some type of stipulation.
Right.
You know, no dreadlocks, clean shaven, we want you in the suit, we want these, we want that.
No record.
Yeah, you know, it comes with stipulations and not enough understanding, you know, and I think it takes people understanding what has happened and that can really provide opportunities that change lives and change communities. Because, I mean, Brother Van Jones says it best: what stops a bullet? A job.
Right.
You know, opportunities.
Right.
You know, and so you can't take these opportunities out of communities and then.
Because I think that with us, man, with some of us, our people, is that when we make it, I mean, we don't really reach back and give back, because I think that one of the issues is too many people have money, not used to having money, or too many. There's so many people who have become successful, and it shocked them, and it happened so fast. I mean, we just don't give back, man, and so you got these young people. First of all, school is not interesting enough. So we're going to have to do something that's a little bit more innovative in our schools, because people, I think someone called me last week and interviewed me for a magazine article, and they asked me, what do I think is the main issue that's failing our young men of color? And I think, man, I really would dig deep and say, is school attractive enough? Because that's where it all begins, when there's no more interest in school. So we need to do something in the schools. I think the educators are doing all they know to do. I think they're doing a great job, by the way. But they need something that's more innovative and more attractive to these young men.
Well, I think if you open up a book, right? I mean, when's the first time you've seen? There aren't too many history books in schools, and like I said, this isn't the teacher's fault. It's just what's been mandated and passed down.
Right.
But there aren't too many things that really talk about the impact of Black Americans in America. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I just think from the beginning, it almost seems like a travesty. You know, when I walk in and I'm reading about my history in America, and it's like slavery, 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 slavery.
Right.
Like, you know, it just tears down my confidence. It just chips away at the little bit of humanity that I have left. And so I just think that when I look at some other folks and how they teach their kids, how they're like, think about what LeBron James is doing, right?
Right.
I mean, why are these kids all of a sudden scoring off the chain with their test results and stuff?
Probably because it's a different type of curriculum.
Different type of curriculum.
Educators.
Yeah, different educators. They understand that minority children, Hispanic and black, because he's got a bunch in there.
Right.
You've got to cater these things toward those kids.
Right.
And so I think there's kind of been this one shoe size fits all method that's been passed down. And I mean, it just doesn't fit our kids. And so we have to be honest about that.
Right, right. So, you know, one of our next major projects, hopefully in year 2020, is we want an all-boys school. And I want to start with, we'd like to start with kindergarten to maybe second or third grade, just to give that true introduction to education. But as I talk to the team who's implementing this, is that, man, we got to get these kids to learn first and foremost where they come from.
Yeah.
Learn your family roots. I was at a school today speaking, and I was talking about who in here knows their great-great-grandmother. And over half of the class was like, who is the great-great-grandmother? So they didn't even know, man. So we just got to educate our kids on our own history, and not just slavery. So I think a lot of them, when you talk about your black history, well, I was a slave, but they don't know their own family struggles, man.
Yeah, and you know, my sister, she had traced our legacy, or not our legacy, but she traced how we got here back to the Caribbean islands. And so I was like, wow. And so she was like, yeah, but to figure out, she said, I got an idea of what part of Africa we came from, but I got to go back to the islands where we've got more birth certificates and different things. And it's just very interesting because, you know, I speak to some of my friends who don't look like me, and just the depth of their knowledge of their history. And I'm just like, man, I can't, you know, we ain't got a bunch of black and white photos, you know.
Right.
I don't have a portrait of you know, one of my great-great-great-grandparents sitting in the chair that was drawn, you know, like.
Really?
Yeah.
So you think about it, so you, like me, I don't know anything past my dad's mom. On my dad's side. And on my mom's side, I don't know anything past her father.
Yeah.
So even myself, man, I don't really, sometimes I take life for granted because I really don't know where I come from.
Yeah.
And so most of the times I think people take life for granted a lot of times, man, because they may not know how good they have it.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of that as well. So I may be a couple of years older than you, but I need to go back and just do some research, because there's things in my life, man, that I may not know how great I have it.
Yeah.
And that is the challenge that we're having with a lot of these young people today. They don't know, man. They just need to know their history, man.
But, man, so I use my wife as an example, right? So my wife is, she's an OB, owns her own practice right outside the north side. But the story, I mean, her father was able to track their story back down to, like, during slavery. And so she has a great-great-grandfather in slavery who bought his freedom, bought the freedom of his wife, bought the freedom of his children. And once he was freed, he went and worked as a janitor over at Yale University.
Wow.
So, and he, you know, as he's working as a janitor, cleaning floors, cleaning toilets and stuff, and this is still during slavery, he brings his son with him to work. You know, so his son is there seeing it, right? Wow. And as he's there are no black kids at this university, Yale University at the time. He was telling his son that you could attend this school, right? So, needless to say, his son gets into Yale University, becomes the first African American to graduate from an Ivy League school, graduated from their medical school.
Wow.
Opens up his own practice, and he has a very diverse group of patients that he serves. Gets a letter from Abraham Lincoln asking him to lead the medical unit during the Civil War for the Union soldiers, because he couldn't find any white doctors to do it because there were black soldiers there.
Wow.
And so you fast forward down the timeline, you know, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law marched with Dr. King during the Civil Rights Movement. So I'm looking at her, and she'll tell me all the time, you know the story better than me, but I'm like, man, to be able to trace your history back that far, like you can already see where the cycle was broken. And that story is so powerful to me because I'm thinking about the slave who had to overcome the physical burden of slavery, the mental burden of slavery, the emotional burden of slavery, to not only buy his freedom, but to buy his wife's freedom, to buy his children's freedom. Like, what is that? Like, when I hear that story, it empowers me as a man in ways that I have never been empowered, because I understand just how strong we are.
Wow.
And you know, I mean, because those are the things that hit. I'm like, wow.
So he accomplished all that just by experiencing a trip on the campus with his father?
No, no, no. But what I'm saying is, I don't know the intricacies and the details of it. What I'm saying is, it allowed me to see just how these cycles can be broken.
Okay.
And that's what I was inspired by. Because I'm not even inspired. I'm more inspired by the slave that was able to buy his freedom, buy his wife's freedom, and buy his kids' freedom, than I am by his son, who was able to become, you know, the first black graduate of an Ivy League school. Like, I mean, that's a huge accomplishment.
Right.
But I'm looking at what his father had to endure just to get him to that place.
Right.
And I mean, those are, like I said, I can see the impact of it on their generational lineage.
Right.
But for me, what I'm saying is that's what I'm empowered by. That's what I'm just like, wow. You know, I don't know how he did it, but the fact that he was able to do it lets me know I can do it. You know, it's kind of like, what was that crazy world record that couldn't be broken in the mile, and then the first guy that broke it, everybody else came behind him and broke it.
Right.
You know, it breaks something in your mind and says you can't do it.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, I just start looking at life differently. You know.
Wow.
So, I mean, literally 2 years after I heard that story is when I quit my job. I was like, I'm gonna open up my own PR firm and I'm gonna figure this out.
Really?
Know? Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it was. That's how it was with because I quit my job the same day that former President Barack Obama.
Yeah.
The day that he was sworn in his first term.
Yeah.
That is when I quit my job. So, like, seriously, it was like, and then it was like I was watching him, man, and I remember sitting in his room. And I was like, if this brother could become the president, I'm done, man. And I stepped out on faith, man. The same day I submitted a resignation letter. Yeah. Had no clue what I wanted to do. All I know is I could be doing better than this right here. Yeah. So, and it's those moments, man. And I strongly believe that, and that is some of the things that I'm doing at Next Level Boys Academy. I think the video you saw, it was called Your Choice. Yeah. So I took a group of young men to the Fulton County Jail. And then we left and went to Clark Atlanta University. Mm-hmm. So now I'm giving you choices. So now you can either look at this cell, or you can look at this dorm. And because the way that it's designed and set up is, I do know that the average young man will maximize on the opportunity once it's presented to him. Yeah. But it takes time. So just like you saw and heard this one story and say, hey, you know what? I could do this, or I can do something like. So that is what we're doing at Next Level Boys Academy, man. It's not. First of all, we're committed to what we're doing. We mentor young men 6 days a week. So we're not. This is what I do full time. So it's not like I go and work my good job at 92.3 at the end of the day. You know, I go mentor, man. So I'm doing this all day, every day. But the ultimate goal with my team and I is to present this to some young men, some different opportunities, different aspects of life. Yeah. And so, and a lot of them are maximizing on it, because you got to think, man, there were 21, 22-year-old young men that's coming to my class that live in Atlanta. The 22 years old has never been to Union City. Mm. You got some 23, 24-year-olds in Atlanta has never been to Decatur. Mm. So they have never come out of the confinements of their community, so they don't really know better. Just the fact of getting on the bus and riding. I mean, a 19-year-old who's never been in a car, man. Could you imagine that? Yeah. So they've been on the bus all their life. So I think what we want to do is just create different opportunities, man. And once we do that, I think they're maximized on it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, too, is what we're doing now, right? It's the information that we're able to provide and giving it to folks in its context. Right. You know, because I was just shocked, to be honest, because 92.3 is a relatively, it's in its infancy compared to other stations here in Atlanta, but they're doing numbers. They've got an audience. People are tuning in and listening. And my first thought is, wow, okay, entertainment, everything is awesome. They do an amazing job, but what if we start bringing in people who are really doing things at an elevated level in the city of Atlanta? Right. That are really making an impact? What if we start talking about them, talking to them, sharing their stories, how they got to where they are? And so I'm just always so focused and impacted by stories like yours and people who are making just huge strides. Thank you, man.
It's I just want to get the message out, and again, we've been around 10 years.
Wow.
And since 2009, Next Level Boys Academy has mentored over 1,000 young men.
Wow.
From ages 5 to 25. So we do everything, man, from teaching a kindergartner how to tie his shoe in the after-school program to get a 25-year-old out of a 25-year prison sentence to be home with his children, man. So we have a wide range of mentoring, and we have a program on Tuesday nights. It's called The Huddle, where we're actually mentoring fathers with sons. So we're just trying to just strengthen and build both young and adult men.
What is that like for you? Just seeing the impact of it. What does it do for you? How does it hit you?
Well, what it does for me is, I think most men self-destruct when they feel like they don't have a purpose. Mm-hmm. And I can honestly and truly say that I have a real purpose. Mm-hmm. I'm on a mission, man. God has given me an assignment.
Yeah.
So because of that, every day that you live, man, you focus on your assignment. Because one thing I do know is pleasing people is almost impossible to do. But and I don't want to preach on here, man, because I'm just, I'm a pastor's kid, so I have to just touch on it a little bit, man. But it makes me feel good to know that if I can make a difference in 1 out of 100 lives a week that I come in contact with, man. So just having purpose.
Yeah.
And it's not about me. Like, it gets to me at the end of the day. And I know we have to have our self-time and our self-help and our self-talk.
Yeah.
But just having a purpose, man, it just gives you a total different light, total different aspect on life. So it takes a toll on me mentally and definitely my family, man. But I have a purpose.
Yeah, and that's always great to hear because, I sit back a lot of times and I ask myself just, okay, am I walking in purpose? Because when you're walking in purpose, there's passion to what you do. And the passion is so much greater than just clocking in somewhere. You
right.
know, and I knew for me, in order to do what I really wanted to do, what I had a heart to do, I needed to get off of that 9 to 5 clock, similar to what you did, and really, okay, let me get out here and figure this out. And man, again, that's what inspires me and keeps me going. It's really just because for me, it's okay. Understanding I'm making an impact, but being able to attach it to a revenue stream so that I can continue to make that impact.
Right.
And so.
But the revenue part will come, and I can give you a testimony on that. Is because out of 10 years, man, running this organization, I never applied for a grant. Not even interested in one. But I do know that money finds purpose.
Yeah.
And if you're real about it and you're sincere about it, it'll find you. The revenue part, the financial piece will find you. But a lot of times, man, you don't. And how you know that you're walking in your purpose, man, you just get excited about it. It's just every time you get an opportunity to do what you do, whether it's an auto mechanic, whether it's a pilot, whether it's a school bus driver or teacher, whenever you wake up every morning and you cannot wait to get to what you're doing, then the answer is this is what you're supposed to be doing, man. So I go to bed thinking about it, I wake up thinking about it, and I had to get to a place in my life where it was no longer about me.
Yeah.
And so that is why I'm excited to do what I do.
Man, for me, it's one of those ones, like even this morning, it was funny, me and my daughter, we took a nap yesterday, and I woke up, and I'm like, man, we dozed off at like 2:30, it's like 7 when we woke up, I'm going to have a hard time going to sleep,
right.
And she ended up dozing off, I probably dozed off a little later, but I woke up before my alarm clock went off again, just kind of, okay, what do I need to do today, how can I make that impact, and I just know just what the legacy does to not just me, but the me's that come after me, you know?
Right.
Like that's going to be the huge part.
Because you're in a field of work that every one life that you touch, it turns into multiples.
Yeah.
So what you're doing, and I follow your work, and even even outside of the radio, man, you got to think if you're PR and you are supporting, or you got a client that's out there on a mission to make a difference in anything that they do.
Yeah.
just that one client, man, reaches multitudes.
Yeah.
So, you're in a great place.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in a position where you can really, really make a major impact. And this is what I was talking about earlier, man, is that you don't always have to go out and read a book to a young man or anything like that. Just be in position to provide and offer your services to people to get the message out.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I just can't thank you enough for this, man.
No, I appreciate it. And I think one of the times I was able to really see all that come together was when I went down and spoke at Valdosta State. Their PRSA chapter had invited me to come down and speak, and after I had spoke to them, the only other black male in the room came up to me, one of their graduating seniors, and said, "Man, you just don't know what it means to me to see somebody like you in your position, to see you doing what you're doing." He said, "Because I've reached out, I've interned at other places, and he said, I know that top brass doesn't always look like you, and so to see you doing what you're doing really empowers me." And it really kind of hit me, like, it was like, I'm not going to cry, thug tears,
Right.
But, just knowing, okay, like he sees it. And just, the longer I do this, the more they'll see it. So,
I mean, and then again, here I am again interviewing you, man. But I'm trying, because I got this thing. I'm on this. We'll talk about this later, man. I'm on this television type kick. Like I just try to be innovative. So every year I just try to do something different. So my next project, man, major project I want to do is leveling up with Gary Davis. So I just want to go out in these rough neighborhoods with these young men and get these cameras behind the scenes as to the struggle that these mothers are having with these boys that's causing them to go to jail, to walk into their living rooms, into their rooms, just to see this and just go to the roughest neighborhoods in the country. Like, so I'm always in interviewing mode.
Yeah.
But I think I want to get a out, man, that there are individuals out here that genuinely care about the well-being of black boys.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're doing the Next Level Boys Academy, man. We are mentoring 300-400 a year.
Yeah.
And we just keep pressing, have a solid team. You don't often hear me talk about my team enough. So I have about 30 brothers on my team, law enforcement, professional athletes, attorneys, prosecutors, judges. I have a very solid team, man, that kind of work behind the scenes, that come in on every week and just present opportunities and different things for these young men.
And that's the powerful part. And I mean, you see Dave here.
Okay.
I can't do all this by myself.
Right.
So being able to have a brother like Dave come into the room and be able to lend his talents and skills to make sure that we can get the message out. I mean, that's huge, but that goes all back to what you were talking about, and that's the team. That's the whole team element. So
absolutely.
It's huge. It is huge. But we're going to go ahead and get ready to wrap it up. Did you have any final thoughts, any comments you wanted to drop? Any events you got coming up?
No, again, I got the book it's done, but we're going to release it on my birthday, October 27th.
Okay.
So we have this big book signing and birthday celebration, all this, man. It's my first book.
Awesome.
It's entitled Raising Him Without Him.
Wow.
So we had an opportunity. We're already pitching it to different people to make it a production.
Okay.
Because there's really a challenge out here for these mothers who are raising these young men. So I went out and wrote a 25-chapter manual as to this is what this looks like. We go back to talking about the deadbeat. Is living somewhere. That's one of the chapters, man. So you got to get these dads involved, man. You got to put those feelings to the side and let the young man have an opportunity to make the decision whether or not he wants a relationship with his dad.
Talk about it.
So, but you can get it in the book, man. So we just, of course, you probably see it on my Instagram. You can follow Next Level Boys Academy on Instagram, on Facebook, Next Level Boys Academy. We just celebrated 10 years with our all-white mother-son ball.
I saw it.
At the Delta Flight Museum, man. So I took it to... It was so big, Brother Carter, that I had to take a break, man. I don't even know what to do next year. I'm thinking about hopefully somebody to connect me with Mr. Tyler Perry. So the only way I would do the ball next year, man, if he'll let me do it on his studio. So you have not if you ask not. So I'll put that out there in the atmosphere. But other than that, man, if you know of anyone with a young man, and we just don't work with challenged young men, just anybody that has that son, such as myself, who needs that additional support. reach out to us. Next Level Boys Academy on Instagram. Our website is nextlevelboysacademy.com. And I highly recommend if you have a son that's age 10 and up, you got to get him connected to a mentoring program, even if dad's involved, because the majority of the young men that we mentor have both parents in the household.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So boys are tough. You remember that, right?
Yeah.
We used to be tough, man. But you had somebody give you a ride home. You had to walk and steal right.
It's those baby steps.
Absolutely.
And what does God do next?
Absolutely.
He gives me a daughter. So
Oh my man,
I got to learn all about it.
Is this your first one?
My first one.
Man, I got a 4-year-old daughter. I have a son that's a senior in college. I got a 4-year-old daughter, and girls are so. I would never, ever in my life have a mentoring program for girls. They just have a different way of getting stuff out of you, man. And, my daughter just straight runs my life, dude. So, how old is your daughter?
Man, 19 months.
I remember those days, man.
But she started walking when she was 7 months.
Oh, wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But, man, I want you to come out, man. Just one of the Saturday programs, just kind of sit down and just kind of look at some of the things that we're doing. And I have a message that the world is waiting on.
Yeah.
And I need to find a way to get the content out there so we can see, so the world can see, because I can't just do things this locally, man. I think with the vision that God has given me is global. So the more I think about doing it just in Atlanta, it's going to frustrate me. So I just know that the world, if you watch the news, or if you read the paper, or you go on the internet, the world is having issues with young men of color. Mm-hmm. So we need to get a Next Level Boys Academy. Every time you see a McDonald's, you need to see a Next Level Boys Academy, man. That is my ultimate goal.
You got to think about it too, man. That was the whole reason they made Black Panther.
Right.
They only put up $200 million and made over $3 billion worldwide.
Wow.
I mean, that's how thirsty we are to see somebody like us doing something on a major scale.
Right.
And so,
I think to your
point,
yeah,
that's why having a Next Level Boys Academy in every country matters.
Absolutely. I'm sure you can help me pull it off, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We're going to do it. We're going to do it.
Okay, man.
So, cool, man. Hey, Gary, thank you so much for coming on today. You all, I am Dontaye Carter with Beyond the Brand right here on Hits 92.3.